Hi, everybody. Welcome to January's edition of Third Space Live. My name is Megan Woodruff, and I am your host today. And we're here to talk about a topic that isn't going to be new to you. I'm sure you've seen a lot of it on your feeds and your screens and in your conversations this month. We're talking about self-care, but we have a different equation for you today that I don't think that you've heard of before. So stay tuned for that, because this is going to be something that you're going to be able to apply to your life today to get you to think about and craft self-care in terms of uniquely what it means for you versus what you're seeing out there, all the to-do lists, top 5 self-care things, New Year's, new you, all this stuff. We're going to get rid of that, and we've got clinical counselor and Third Space alumni Tamara Childs with us today, and she's going to be walking us through a unique exercise that is going to take a different spin on self-care today. So I want to welcome my guests as we dive in. We've got Nicole Gerber, who is one of our Third Space team members. Good morning, Nicole. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Megan. Good to see you.
And we've got Tamara with us. Hi, Tamara. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Megan. Hi, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
So nice to have an alumni on the call. We need to get more. We need to get our alumni on here more often. You guys are all graduated with your clinical counseling degrees, your master's degrees, and you're out in our community making such a huge impact. And so it's really nice to stay connected with you. And I know you're very busy right now, and your roster is full of counseling clients, and I'm just so happy that you've been able to graduate and start your own private practice, and you're doing really well. So if anyone wants to learn more about Tamara after the call today, her website is tamarachildswellness.com. So let's dive into what we're talking about. We're talking about self-care, and we're going to take a different approach with it today, which I'm really excited about. And maybe, Tamara, we could just start by you telling us a little bit about your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first, I couldn't agree with you more, Megan. Self-care has really become associated with to-do lists, with having to do more, with shoulding ourselves. I should be doing more of this, getting more on this. And I think even the topic or the phrase itself can bring up a little bit of apprehension, a sense of I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough. And sometimes self-care absolutely does involve doing a little bit more. But it could be so much more than that. It could be different than that too. It could be about doing less. It could be about simply being. It could be about shifting one's perspective. And so, like you said, we kind of want to put it on its head today and look at it from a totally different perspective, starting from something a lot more abstract. And I promise you that towards the end of today, I'm sure we'll get into some real specifics for those of you who are just looking for some new ideas of what you could do or what you can shift. But let's start from a really abstract place. And before I do, I have to give credit to Deanne of Stepping Stones Counseling in Kelowna, because this is just a really timely podcast, Megan. I was very recently in a meeting with about a dozen clinical counselors in our region, and the topic happened to be on self-care. And Deanne just pleasantly surprised us with opening the topic with a really brilliant question. Something that I don't think any of us had even asked before. And it started a really wonderful exercise in giving us a starting point of how to approach this otherwise kind of nerve-wracking topic in our busy world. So shall I pose the question?
I would love that. Deanne is a huge supporter of Third Space, and her counseling services, Stepping Stones, does so many great things for people in our community. And so it's so great that you brought her up today. And yeah, huge supporter of her. So anything that she has to say is usually gold. So
right?
Yes. So
agreed. So she's the creative engineer behind where we're starting today.
Starting point. Okay, let's hear this magical question.
This magical question. Okay. And Megan and Nicole, and for those of you who are listening and watching, as I ask this, feel free to ask yourself this question. Let's do this.
Let's do this.
What does self-care feel like for you? What does self-care feel like for you?
Interesting.
I think that a lot of times it feels like I'm really capable. It feels like a sense of independence. It feels like, just like that. It's a good reminder of my own kind of self-strength and what I'm capable of. And I think sometimes I need that. I need that reminder, and self-care gives me that. But I think overall, like in the moment, that's how I feel. But the long-term gains of self-care can be just a sense of spaciousness and freedom, which is something I always really crave. And I'm definitely someone that, speaking of the to-do lists and the kind of like, disciplined way of doing things, I kind of cringe away from that stuff because I'm kind of a free spirit and I like to be that way, and I don't really like a lot of things that are too structured or disciplined. Like I won't want to do it then. So if my self-care is like that, like I can't approach it that way, or else I just won't do it. I have to just have it be like, oh, I'm just going to do this today, even if in the back of my mind I'm like, oh yeah, I need to, do the dishes this afternoon, or I need to go for a run tomorrow, whatever. But if I like put it in my agenda, I feel like I would procrastinate it more.
Sounds like the real essence of what self-care feels like for you is freedom. Freedom is what is really the feeling and what is threaded and what is blossomed out of that. Megan, how about you? Did anything come to mind for you to that question, what self-care feels like?
Yeah, I like the feeling piece. I think that a lot of times we really jump to what we need to do. And I do this in like coaching and leadership type stuff, is talking about the difference between being and doing. So sometimes in our businesses or in our roles, we have these huge to-do lists, and then they become heavy, right? But if we look at that to-do list from a space of who do I want to be when I'm going about these things, or how do I want to show up when I'm going about these things, it can be more of an inspiring place to operate from. So I love that twist on self-care too, because a lot of times we just think, oh, I need to, I don't know, write in my journal and go to yoga and drink a bunch of water and it's just to-do lists aren't very inspiring, right? So I love that we're kind of, because going to yoga, drinking the water, doing all those things will equate to a feeling, but starting from the feeling, I think, is really cool. So to answer your question that I just talked around, I would say for me right now, how I want to feel, or how I want self-care to feel, is calm and peaceful.
When Deanne posed the question to us, you two seem to be able to, conclude your thoughts quite well. I'm not quite as efficient. For me, it was like peeling back the layers. So I don't know if any of our listeners are doing that right now too, but I had to go to probably about a dozen words. I went from pretty specific to really, really abstract. And then I found my word. I mean, words like empowering and healing, balanced, honoring, blossoming, loving. All these words are coming. Centered, present. That was a big one. And then I thought, oh, it's kind of like the feeling I get when I laugh. A really good belly laugh. There's a feeling that I don't think even I have an English word for. I'm like, it feels like that. And I thought, oh, it's similar to when I say at the end of a yoga class. And then I found it. And then I found my word. Not that it just has to be one, but for me, it was whole. The feeling of wholeness. And it was just such a neat exercise going through this with all these other, therapists, and just seeing what was coming. It was just fun to just connect around this. And everyone had their different process of kind of finding that place of what it felt like for them. I happen to be, I just want to share this, and everyone's so different. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Maybe you have your answer just like that. And I know that when I happened to be doing that meeting at my mother's place, of all places, because we had a huge storm, a huge windstorm at my place. The power went out. I had no internet, so I had to find another place to go online to participate in this meeting. And afterwards, I went upstairs, and my mom was there and her boyfriend, and I thought, I'm going to see what they have to say to answer that question. And I said, so I asked my mother, I said, what does self-care feel like for you? And right away, without skipping a beat, good, she said. Feels good. Period. End of story. Final answer. That's awesome. And then I asked boyfriend, and he initially wanted to go into like describing, what it is, and what it looks like, and all those things. And I very non-counselor like interrupted him. I said, feeling word. Give me a feeling. He said, loving. So anyway, just lots of examples. I don't know what our viewers or listeners are thinking themselves, but whatever comes to mind, just notice and hold that for a moment.
What I like is that it can evolve, and taking care of yourself can mean something different every day. And I like that. So maybe today what I need to feel and how I want to feel is calm and peaceful, but maybe tomorrow I want to feel energized and strong. So starting from the place of feeling, I think it's a good place to start. And then knowing that if your self-care routine is the same every single day, it doesn't have to be. And I think Nicole was speaking to that too. She recognizes for her, if it's regimented and scheduled, she just won't do it, or it's not exciting for her. So, starting your day by asking yourself, how do I want to feel today? Or what does taking care of myself feel like today?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
We kind of have this abstract idea of how we want to feel. Then what do we do with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. And first, I just want to appreciate what you mentioned there, that by starting from this more abstract place or noticing what it feels like, it does provide that flexibility. It does allow us to then consider what we need and what that could look like for us today, which can change. And I'd say that is what you could do with that. Once you answer that question for yourself, that initial question, you could ask yourself, what you want to ask yourself, what could that be like? And in order to determine that, the best way sometimes to consider what something could be is ask yourself what it has been like that. Consider times when you have had that feeling in completeness, or times when you have felt that way. What did that look like? What factors contributed to you having that feeling?
For me, I think a lot of it has to do with my environment. The type of environment that I'm in can sometimes dictate how I feel. Sidebar, those of you who don't know me, I have a 2-year-old at home, and my house is chaos. It's chaos all the time. And so, like having a nice, clean, clutter-free, aesthetically pleasing space, I think really, when I think about times when I felt really calm and peaceful, though that has been in place. Yeah.
I would totally agree with what you're saying, Megan, about the fact that space and your environment has a lot to do with how you feel on the inside, and the kind of practices of self-care around our home and the kind of care that we put into our space, I think has a lot to do with then how we feel on the inside. And I look around me and I'm like, I see my plants and they're growing and I'm very happy about that. And my space is clean and it just really reflects who I am and my personality. And it's a really wonderful feeling when you can have that kind of sense of calm in your space that's being kind of reflected back to you then. But the maintenance of it is the self-care act then, right? Like the maintenance of having a clean space and making sure you're taking those quiet moments out of your day, if that's what you're seeking, is actually be like, no, I'm just going to sit here and be quiet for half an hour and don't need to rush off and do groceries or, you know, get this and that off my to-do list or, you know, immediately exercise or whatever it is, but just like kind of carve out spaces to allow yourself to feel the way you want to feel after you've done the self-care stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh yeah, I did the thing, like, let's do the next thing, but just like sit in it a bit.
Isn't it funny how we value, well, I don't want to speak for other people, for myself, I place value on, because I my time is different these days, and so how I spend my time, I always want it to be the most impactful. I want to maximize what I want to multitask. I want to have it like planned. I want it, you know, how I'm spending my time is very important to me. And it's interesting how the things that I would value with my time before I've done the work is, like getting shit done. And now it's more about, those are things that need to be done, but what I truly value with my time and the most important things that I can do with my time are to make sure that I have a full cup so that I can go out and be as impactful as I possibly can with my family and my community and in my career. And so, that perspective and then placing the value on that time and making that a priority has been a shift for me. Because sometimes we just get caught up in thinking that the most important and valuable things we should be doing are the to-do list.
Any further specifics about what your feeling is actualized as?
Yeah, when I think it's so weird because I never would have connected self-care with this, but what has come up for me now is self-care is me decluttering and kind of refining my space. And making that a priority. Like, my child does not need to have 500 toys, right? Like, she can have some toys, but her toy room is like, it's chaos. It's chaos. And that takes up a big area of our home, and that whole area of the home feels very chaotic, and we spend a lot of time in there, the family area, toy room kind of thing. So, and when I go down there, I'm always like, it's like, I don't really realize it I didn't realize it until now, how I don't feel like chill and complete and happy in that space. So I think that self-care for me right now would be rethinking that space and making the energy feel a little calmer and cleaner, and which I don't think any of you probably have seen that on your social media. Self-care is clean up your child's toy room. But I think that is actually what is going to make me feel the way that I want to feel. So it's a new one.
And that's what's so beautiful about this approach, is it really does get you down to thinking about what is true for you at this time and in this season. You're right. You don't hear about that associated with self-care very often. We all know that, the top 5 lists. We see people doing yoga or sitting with a cup of tea or being in nature, which are all beautiful things and they work. But to flip this on our head and really consider what is true for you in this season and in this time. I mean, I know that when I completed my master's degree, for an example, self-care for me, to create that sense of wholeness after such a busy season, so much stress, was really just sitting down and staring out the window and looking at nature for ridiculous amounts of time. That is what created wholeness, that feeling for me. And since then, my goodness, I mean, it's completely shifted. Now some of my best days really are when I've had a ton to do and I've done it all. And that's just where I'm at right now. And that's where my body and my mind and my heart are at. And in addition to some other constants and other things that lend themselves well to the biopsychosocial spiritual creatures that we are. But yeah.
I think of things as being very like multi-layered, right? So if the surface feeling initially is that sense of capability and kind of feeling, independent and strong, the end results, underneath that too is just a sense of freedom or a sense of spaciousness, so I think it is kind of both. I think that there's self-care short term and there's self-care long term, right? Maybe more specifically, we could talk about what Tamara mentioned when she was going through her master's, for example. When you're really, really stressed and you're going through times of severe stress, a lot of these things can just fall to the wayside and can just disappear. And especially right now, we all have been laboring under a degree of stress, whatever that degree is. We are all collectively living in a pandemic, and that everyone's heard it, everyone knows it, but it certainly affects us at different degrees. We all have personal things we're going through. So I think that in those situations, self-care can really fall apart. I remember when I was doing my master's, it was like, a bit of a, my space was definitely not calm and relaxing. It was a bit of a mess a lot of the time. And yeah, just periods of really severe stress that I've gone through can cause many different things, but just, not taking care of myself very well. When I'm under severe stress and anxiety, I just stop eating, things like that I think can be really hard to think about, like self-care, like, oh, and in those moments, I think what's really, really important is like very specific actionable things that are small, simple, and easy to do. So it's like, okay, today I need to have a shower, or like today I need to, make myself a healthy breakfast or whatever that is. But just like the small things to keep it going, that like you're not going to completely, the bottom's not going to fall out on you, basically, if you stop doing all of the things. And then it helps you for the next day, like it's like, okay, if I do the dishes now, this is going to help me tomorrow. It's okay that sometimes self-care stuff isn't like extra luxurious or isn't like, that kind of feeling, but it's really just tangible things that are kind of daily needs, especially when you're going through really, really stressful periods of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I really want to just acknowledge, a couple of aspects of what you said. First, just as you mentioned that we're all under this extra layer of stress collectively with the pandemic, on top of everything else that we are endeavoring to accomplish in life, or just get from point A to point B. It just reminds me that how important, how empowering and healing that just self-compassion can be right now, or for lack of a better way of saying it, just patting ourselves on the back for a second and just acknowledging and celebrating what we are doing. Being kind to ourselves, patient and gracious, and truly acknowledging just how much we are doing. I mean, even collectively, like, look at us go. I just think that there could be, we could be so hard on ourselves, so quick to see where we fall short, where we're not doing enough, where we're not good enough, rather than putting some of our good attention and energy into what we are doing, what's going well, and why, and just giving ourselves a little bit of credit. And especially all those parents out there, can you just do that for yourself for just a second? anyway, yeah. So self-compassion, that just really comes to my heart right now as you're just opening what you were saying there, Nicole. But, and yes, specifics. Something else about the way what you just said too is acknowledging just the value in simplicity. And when things are overwhelming, when things are stressful, rather than looking at everything that can or should be done, how about considering just one thing? Just one thing that you value that would bring you life or bring you to that place of that, what self-care feels like for you at that time, and letting that be enough, starting there with just one thing.
I'd love to encourage all of the listeners to take this on or try this. The first thing you do is you just ask yourself, what does self-care feel like? So you start from this abstract feeling, and it could be one word. It could be multiple layers of words like Nicole had. It could start up here and work your way down here like Tamara. Whatever it is for you, kind of getting clear on some sort of a feeling that if you were to do self-care, what would you want the end result to be? How would you want to feel at the end of doing those things? So we're going to start there. And then once we are clear on how that's going to feel, or our core desired feelings from taking care of ourselves, then we ask ourselves, well, when have I had this before? When has this happened for me in the past? And try to come up with something real that you can think of when you have felt this way. And then once we've got that, we can start to brainstorm and get creative and think of ways how we can cultivate that feeling today and bring that feeling into our lives today. And the example came out of my scenario was the cleaning of the toy room, when that wouldn't necessarily have been something that I would have woke up today and said, oh, self-care for me today is going to be cleaning up my child's toys. But now when I look at it in a different way, that it's actually going to make me feel the way I want to feel, because I'm going to create a peaceful, clean environment for myself to feel calm and peaceful. So feeling, remembering, and then doing is kind of, did I butcher that or did I get that right, Tamara?
I don't think you butchered that at all. I think that you summarized that lovely.
I want people to walk away really clear, because it's such a simple exercise to do and it can be really impactful. So
yeah, again, just appreciating that, again, that self-care can start even just with our own perspectives, or at the very least, asking ourselves, what is our perspective? Where mindsets are we entertaining? What narratives are we playing? And are they punching holes in our bucket? Are they patching it? Are they filling it up? So right there before this, and so outside of any to-do list. Actually, I was listening to a resiliency podcast. I think it was last year, and I was listening to Dr. Krieger. He's a neuroscientist from Mount Sinai Institute in the States, and he's done some research where he highlighted the key top 3 mindsets that came out of research of what helps to promote and maintain resilience. And number 1 was optimism, which I think is something that we could all definitely benefit from today. Optimism in such that looking at uncertainty as opportunity for success. Looking at uncertainty as opportunity for success. Secondly, and this is huge, celebrating the small successes. Celebrating what has gone well today for you, and celebrating that, or in your life in general. Again, looking at the small successes and celebrating them. And finally, considering your strengths. If you're finding yourself in a little bit of an overwhelming situation, you're lacking confidence in your ability to be okay, and trust that things will be okay. Consider when you've been in tough times before, that you overcome, and how that was. What strengths do you possess? Acknowledging them, trusting yourself a little bit and bringing those into the present.
Yeah, I think that resilient, like cultivating resilience or trying to build that muscle of resilience is important work, and work that could be really valuable for people right now. So thank you for bringing that to the table. And the thing that comes up for me is like, what if I don't feel like being optimistic? Like, what if it's hard for me to be optimistic right now? Like, things are so uncertain in the future. I'm just say, for example, I'm in this headspace of I'm about to lose my job, or my loved one is sick, or, you know, a lot of people are going through some really serious things, and trying to bring optimism into that situation can be difficult and not realistic for some people right now. So, what would you say in that circumstance?
Mm-hmm. It's not about neglecting what is true. It is about considering the whole truth. And anxiety, worry, and depression is always there only to suggest one very, very narrow perspective. And so if we leave those guys in shotgun, that is the path that we will travel. But I'm just encouraging people to open up their perspective and consider the whole narrative, and that is that there is also the possibility of success. But yeah.
Nicole, I can see you, the wheels turning for you. So what are your thoughts on all of this?
I know, don't I get the little like look in my eyes? And like,
well, we've just had so many Nicole and I have had lots of conversations around these kinds of things. What I like that Tamara said is she said that it doesn't take away from, like, trying to be optimistic doesn't take away from all of the other pain and all of the other things. That clicked for me, but I'm just interested what you're hearing, Nicole.
I think for me as a wordsmith, as a writer, I always want to look for synonyms. So if optimism or optimistic is not landing, or, you know, we often say, like, don't ever tell someone to just be positive, right? Like, that's not going to work. It's, okay, well, how can we look for other words that are maybe more of the meaning that we're trying to convey? And I think in this instance, it's actually more about hope, which is the opposite of despair. Despair suggests a certainty, absolute certainty that nothing is going to work out, that everything is going to fail, that it's all going to be tough and hard and brutal forever. But that suggests that you are all knowing, and that you can predict the future, and that you can really, really know that it's all going to be that way. Sometimes optimism or hope allows for uncertainty. And uncertainty is scary, 100%. But uncertainty means that you don't actually know the future. And not knowing the future means that you can then be hopeful, and you can find ways of hope. And I think for myself, it's not really about looking at it from pessimistic or optimistic perspective, which I feel can be really binary. And I think what you're suggesting anyway is about finding that whole story. I think it's saying, okay, there is some hope here. I don't know the full story. I don't know what tomorrow might bring. I don't know what next year might bring. I am just hopeful. You know, like, I'm just staying in a state of hope that I don't have all the answers, and I don't want to stay in a state of despair, right? So I think that kind of looking at that from a different perspective might be helpful for people who are like, because some people aren't naturally optimistic people anyway, right? Like, we all have different personalities, but you're absolutely right in that depression, anxiety, stress really gives you a narrow view of a picture. So allowing in for hope allows you to, like, have that little crack in the door to maybe see that there's more for you beyond this, you know, this moment that feels terrible or feels really overwhelming, you know. So that's just kind of what was turning in my mind.
Yeah, really good. It is very true that the particular words that we use land so so impactfully for people. So the word optimism for you, Nicole, doesn't necessarily hit the target on resiliency, but more so the word hope kind of paints a better picture for you. So that's really cool. And I like what you say about the certainty versus uncertainty piece. And sometimes we do get caught up in thinking that we know exactly how my day is going to go. My day is going to suck. This meeting's going to be horrible. There's going to be so much traffic. It's going to take forever for me to cook dinner. So I'm using my own examples of how my day could go bad, but I'm not saying that's how I'm looking at my day. But I could get caught up in thinking that I know how things are going to go, and operating from that mindset is very narrow. So I love that you're offering up uncertainty as part of the equation here, and looking at things, what could this meeting look like? What could the rest of the day look like? And that's more of like from possibilities, which is really cool. So I do want to be mindful, of how much time we have and how much time our listeners have. So I'd love to hear any final thoughts, any wrap ups on our self-care conversation from the two of you amazing women today. So I'd just love to hear your final thoughts.
I mean, I think Nicole brought us right to a lovely way to wrap things up. And I mean, hope is truly the foundation of, and what I'd say is continually being threaded throughout therapy in general, really comes down to that. And there are so many ways to get to that place where you have more hope. And I think we just touched on some of the ways today. Whatever brings you to that place of feeling more peace or empowerment or freedom, or being able to see the future with lenses of, of optimism, not just what worry and despair would tell you, but yeah, the hope, absolutely. And wonder, Megan, the way you phrased sort of how you reflected on Nicole's thoughts really is just drawing upon that incredible virtue of wonder.
What if wonder and curiosity were like acts of self-care, like they can be daily mind shifts that you do because it's gonna care for yourself to do that, and gonna help your brain to do that, to shift towards wonder and to shift towards curiosity.
Curiosity has been, like, since taking my coaching training, that has made the biggest impact on my entire life. Is just every situation, every conversation, every scenario, every interaction, looking at it from a place of wanting to understand more, wanting to know more, wanting to think about things from different angles. And just incorporating curiosity into your life can be a really great way to take care of yourself. Really great. Ladies, thank you so much for today. And listeners, I hope that you were able to take some good stuff from our chat today. As always, all three of us are available to you if you ever want to reach out. Tamara would be tamarachildswellness.com. Nicole, how can people find you?
Well, I would say when we post this, we're going to be sure to tag everyone. So everyone will tagged, and you can follow our socials, and you can just find me at Third Space, and if we send a DM or send a Facebook message, like, we're always willing to have a chat.
And if you are a post-secondary student and you're watching this today, just know that we offer free counseling for you. So if you feel like you want to see one of our very skilled, talented, supportive counselors, such as Tamara. Tamara is an alumni, so she has her own private practice now. And of course, you can reach out to her. But if you'd like to access free supportive counseling, you can go to www.thirdspacecanada.org and click on the counseling tab to apply. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.